Are you ready to hear about my trip to the Galapagos?
Yeah!
All right. It is the most diverse and abundant place in the world, especially when it comes to seeing Mother Nature. What struck me most was how raw and harsh life is in the Galapagos, and how receptive all of the creatures are to its conditions. I thought that I would share my experience about the trip and help you evolve a little. And I'll just talk about a few of its inhabitants. How about tortoises, iguanas, and boobies? Oh my. Our trip was in the eastern part of the Galapagos, and I think it's best that I talk about the islands first. So the Galapagos archipelago, oh, I said it correctly, is 600 miles off of the mainland of Ecuador. And I actually took this picture, it was in the boat, so the reflection is the sunlight coming in, but you can see what our route was. There are 13 large islands, 6 small ones, and about 50 rocks and islets that make up the Galapagos Islands. So here's some of the rocks. There are also, even though it's volcanic in origin, there were beautiful beaches too. So there were white sands, green, red sands, just such a variety. And then, of course, you just had rocks coming out of the ocean. The lava that was on some of the islands was really interesting. And this was called Pahoehoe, which is a Polynesian name for calm sea, or word for calm sea. And it's kind of a rope-like structure. And then this other one is more like a rough, crusty, stucco-like lava, and it is called Aa. And our naturalists told us that that's a real easy one to remember because it's the sound you make if you were going to walk on that barefoot. So just really diverse islands there. And the name of the Galapagos actually came from the giant tortoises. The shell means a saddle in Spanish, and that Spanish word is Galapagos, or without the S. And at one time, 200,000 tortoises roamed the Galapagos Islands, and 14 of the islands had their own species. Unfortunately, now there's only 15,000 tortoises left. And this happened mostly in the 1800s with the overexploitation of the whalers. And of course, Charles Darwin eating them for supper. But now, you know, we have 15,000, they have conservation efforts, so we're going to get that number back up. And they really are a creature to behold, just a sight to behold. I think they're the spitting image of E.T. And they just have a way of making you go slow. So I really like that about them. And their slow metabolism allows them to not eat for up to a year, either eat or drink. So I was really surprised when I saw the size of their poop. I didn't want to step on that when I was looking at all the tortoises, but that's pretty big, isn't it? Speaking of size, the marine iguanas have adapted to the El Nino conditions that happen every now and then to the islands. And those harsh conditions make food supply very low for the marine iguanas. They eat seaweed and algae. So what they do is they shrink their skeleton and their size. They can do it by half. And then when food is plentiful, they can grow to full size again. So it's really incredible. I just think they're so interesting. And another thing is they're great divers. And they can drop their heart rate by half, which allows them to stay underwater for over an hour. Now here is a bunch of them on the lava rocks, and they're cold, so they warm up on the lava rocks, and then at nighttime, they really pile up on each other to conserve heat. And I learned another interesting thing from our naturalists. Does anybody know what you call a group of iguanas? Anybody? No? A mess. A mess of iguanas.
M-E-S-S?
M-E-S-S. I think that's so appropriate. I appreciate that. Come on, you guys. So the Galapagos is the only place in the world that you can actually see all species of booby birds. And I was fortunate enough to see the Nazca booby, which is named after one of the tectonic plates, the blue-footed booby, and the red-footed booby. And these are the Nazca boobies. They tend to hatch in the mangroves, so this is on a more fertile island. And then the next one is a red-footed booby with red feet and red eyes. And then we have the blue-footed boobies. And they make their nest on the ground, and it's a very shallow indentation with a perfect white ring around it. And that is made from their guano. And the boobies will lay 2 to 3 eggs because they're hoping that at least one chick will grow to full size. And usually only one does, because if one of the chicks go out of this white circle, the parents completely ignore it. It'll die with them backs to it. And if there's a sibling in the circle, it will peck it to death if it tries to re-enter. So I thought, you know, boo-boo is Spanish for clown, and that's how they were named. They're kind of awkward, funny-like, but these blue-footed boobies are brutal. And I didn't really witness any of that brutality, but I was fortunate enough to see the miracle of a sea lion being born on the rocks, just a stone's throw away from me. It was incredible. And I was fascinated by the communion of mother, baby, placenta, and birds. The placenta was hanging from the mom, in between the mom and the baby, and the frigate birds would swoop down and try and eat it. And of course, there was a gull there on the rock front and center, and he was getting his piece. And this isn't the newborn baby, by the way, this was just another picture. And it just kept, you know, going on, and then she was trying to move the baby up the rocks, and another sea lion didn't like that it was getting close to her, so she had to, you know, ward that threat off. And I was standing there looking at this and thinking, wow, human mothers get to be in a hospital with nurses and doctors to answer any need they have, and the newborn babies are swaddled in blankets and cuddled in arms. We are so fortunate to be human. So I can go on and on about the creatures and animals of the Galapagos, but I thought that I would leave you with my last picture. And this was us leaving the boat. And I'm left with just wonderful memories of the raw, beautiful, abundant life that surrounded me in the Galapagos. My, oh my.